Thank you and welcome everyone to this week's Active Travel Cafe on what may be the first day of proper spring here in England. We will start up tonight with our usual crowdsourced update, and following that we've got our main speaker tonight, who is Jack Swain. He is the CEO of Recyke Your Bike, which is a charity based in the northeast of England which recycles bikes, donated bikes for resale. Really interesting business model, I think, in terms of how they then use that to fund outreach. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Jack, but I'm also looking forward to hearing from all of you. So if anyone, we'll get underway with our crowdsourced update now. So if anyone has got any news to share, do fire away. We've got a few more people coming in the waiting room there. Not seeing any hands go up. Perhaps everyone's been out and about this week. No. I did one item I was going to share because it sort of relates to Jack's news update, Jack's presentation, is that I did see a news item that the bicycle market was picking up after a couple of years of being a little bit in the doldrums. So I thought that was good news, which if I can find the news story, I'll post that in the link. So I'm not seeing any hands go up for news updates. We can always come in later on in the session. So if not, we'll just head straight over to you, Jack, and over to you.
Awesome, cool. Well, thanks for having me. I am going to attempt to share my screen. It did work before, so I'm hoping you should all be able to see when we head into this. We all see that?
Not yet, Jack. Oh, something's popped up.
Yeah.
You could give it a second or two. It was a bit slow before, wasn't it? Yeah, and then if you stick it in presenter mode.
Yeah.
There we go.
That changed?
Yeah.
Awesome. So a little bit about sort of me, about Recyke Your Bike. So we're based in Newcastle in the northeast of England. We've got a site in Byker in Newcastle and in Chesterley Street, which is in County Durham. And that's kind of our vision there on the screen at the moment. So making cycling accessible across the northeast through refurbishment, repairs, training and outreach. So I'm just going to give kind of a brief overview of what we do, how we do it, and everything like that. If there is sort of questions come up throughout the presentation, I haven't quite worked out how to get back to the Zoom screen and be able to cycle through this as well. So I'm not ignoring you if you stick your hand up. I just can't see you. So a little bit about my background. I've been in cycling my whole working life. I've come through various jobs. Sort of my main lumps of my career were through the Halfords Group and Cycle Republic, which was sort of one of their premium cycling divisions. And recently, before Recyke Your Bike, I was with Cytec, developing and delivering mechanics training. Obviously, Cytec, the standard for mechanics training kind of across the world, with centres in Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa and the UK as well. So that's how I got involved working with Recyke Your Bike. We worked together on a project that some of you may have seen that on the One Show, the Gift a Bike for Christmas project, where we worked around Newcastle and surrounding areas to take a load of donated bikes, refurbish them on one day and then distribute them out to kids that wouldn't be getting Christmas presents otherwise. So that's how I kind of got involved with the organisation, and we stayed in touch. And I joined Recyke Your Bike in early 2023. So that was really good to come on board. There was lots of really good stuff going on, and the last 3 years of sort of being involved has really flown by. I was part of the new strategy development, which we released in 2025, which is our sort of 3-year strategy taking us forward. So leading on that was kind of really exciting, having come from more commercial backgrounds of cycling retail and training and things like that. It's been really good to kind of get involved with a strategy, engage with the local councils up here, organisations, charities and stuff, and to kind of build that strategic direction where we want to go. So I've chucked a couple of pictures in there of kind of staff bike rides and everything like that. So it's a really, really positive kind of environment to be able to get out with. There's some trustees in those pictures, some members of staff, which is really rewarding as part of the role to be able to get out and enjoy sort of days like today as well. So a little bit about the challenge we find. So 42 of the 225 most deprived postcodes in England are in the northeast, and here at our sort of main office in Byker, the NE6 postcode in Byker is one of those top 10 most deprived postcodes in England. Obviously, over the last few years, the cost of living crisis, the increase in public transport costs and the cost of bikes and everything like that has become more expensive than ever. Especially through COVID, we saw obviously the difficulties of supply and demand, the increase in bikes, the increase in things like energy prices, production, shipping costs, everything like that. We've seen a lot of parts, a lot of bikes get a lot more expensive. And we also see bike technology constantly changing. There's a lot of research and development. So when people are kind of purchasing new high-end bikes, they regularly become kind of old news, and we see people own a bike for a couple of years and then sort of go, oh, I want the next new thing now. What's more modern? What's going to be the next thing? And those bikes tend to get sort of left in sheds or taken to the tip, or they end up kind of not becoming used. And they end up in disrepair as well. So when people look to purchase these, they might not always know how to look after them. They might not maintain them. They might not be able to afford somewhere to keep them in good condition, like a shed or some storage space inside. So they end up in disrepair, and a lot of bikes we see through the doors become uneconomical to repair as well for people. So that's kind of one of our big ambitions is, how do we get people to learn how to look after their bikes, learn how to fix their bikes and keep those bikes running, so we're not just supplying a constant stream of new bikes and all of those production associated kind of emissions with that. And then the other challenge that we see quite a lot of is a lot of people may struggle to join into an active travel culture. A lot of preconceived ideas around cyclists and how they might be perceived. So we do a lot of work around kind of inviting everybody into that. So we work a lot with groups like refugees, young people, specifically women, the LGBTQ plus community, and trying to create safe spaces for those to not only get into cycling, but get into being able to look after their bikes, being able to come and volunteer and get sort of hands-on tools as well. So how do we go about it? So kind of our charity objectives there, split down into kind of 4 key areas. So number 1, the capacity and skills of the socially disadvantaged. So we look at training through volunteering opportunities, courses, going out and about, doing outreach and training people up in learning those skills to look after bikes and keep them running. Preserving and protecting the health of the public by encouraging cycling. The more people we can get on bikes, the healthier that's going to be. Getting people active, getting people out of cars, off desk chairs and onto bikes is going to major benefit health of individuals, but also the health system as a whole, education of the public. So again, tying that back into maintenance, but also tying it into using the bike safely, getting out and about on them, the kind of things people might need to carry on bike rides, how they might deal with situations on bike rides as well. And then the protection and preservation of the environment. So how do we reduce the need for new parts, new bikes going into that? How do we save bikes from going to landfill? Can we interject and sort of save bikes from becoming uneconomical to repair? Can we offer economical repairs by using salvage parts from other bikes? And how do we prevent sort of those bikes ending up in landfill? And then obviously the environmental side of actually using those bikes as well. So getting out and about and using active travel rather than other alternatives. So a bit more detail about kind of how we do all that. So we refurbish donated bikes for affordable resale. So it was touched on a little bit before, but about 80% of our income comes from selling refurbished bikes, refurbished parts, and stuff like that in our two shops. So the goal, so what we're building towards is that almost a circular economy, a sustainable model where we want to self-fund as much as physically possible and be able to kind of do the outreach work that we do through our own funding, which is always challenging, but it's a really exciting challenge, and having a really good team involved really helps us kind of push that forward. So they get to see the kind of the good stuff coming from the money that's made in those shops. We also redistribute bikes for free to those in need through our referral scheme. So we're looking across the northeast at getting bikes to people, refugees, young people in poverty. We work with some veteran charities, some women-specific charities as well. That would try and get those bikes out to people that need them free of charge. So we've had some really good national lottery funding that in recent years, which has been really good. They've been really helpful on that side of things. We also pass a lot of bikes on to partners for other projects. You'll sort of see in a minute when I go through a few numbers that we get a lot of bikes through the door, probably more than we could manage. So we work with a lot of local partners, charities and projects. So getting them into other charities in prisons. We work with a brain injury charity where they're using bike skills to kind of train people up after brain injuries and things like that. So we salvage all the usable parts from bikes that can't be refurbished, and they go in sale, or we've got a huge selection of secondhand parts that we use to refurbish the other bikes, and building in a circular economy model. Even though we can't use the full bike, they might have sort of cracked frames or corrosion that's dangerous for us to pass on. So we've got a lot of parts that come from that project, and that is a self-sustaining project. That's one of our kind of self-sustaining champions. That's all funded by the money that we make from those parts and putting them onto bikes and things like that. We also deliver a lot of training in bike repairs and maintenance. So we've got some of our own courses that get delivered. We've got Velotech courses, which is a industry recognized, accredited qualification. And we've got some great success stories in the past of volunteers coming to us, going through that training and then securing roles in the industry and other bike shops and getting people into work, which is a really positive thing to see from that. And we partner with other organizations as well. We recognize that we can't do everything. So we tend to stick to the maintenance, the access to bikes. And we work with a lot of other good partners sort of around the region to do more things like the bikeability, getting people onto bikes, guided rides, and things like that. And then working a lot with schools. So we've got a lot of good engagement with local schools around the region of getting sort of active travel into people's heads from an early age, getting children used to coming into school on bikes, and helping school reward those with sort of free bike repairs and things like that. So there's quite a lot going on. And sort of why we do what we do. There's kind of a couple of health and well-being that we saw. Over 90% of our referral scheme recipients last year reported improvements in mental or physical health after they received a bike from us for free. Reducing emissions, we've talked about. There's a little stat in there that commuting by bike rather than by car can save approximately 250 grams of CO2 per kilometre. So there's some real savings to be had there, and obviously the production side of things on new bikes, being able to feed those second-hand bikes in, saving all of that production CO2 is really major. Obviously helping to address transport poverty by offering free or affordable transport options, and then not only that, but the education to maintain them as well and keep those running. And improving education generally around active travel, maintenance of bikes, which means bikes are going to stay on the road for longer. People are obviously going to pass that information around each other, and it starts to build sort of across the region. So we work with a lot of local councils, a lot of Northeast schools and youth organisations, other charity and community groups, prisons, our corporate partners we do a lot of work with as well. We've got around about 70 volunteers on the books at the moment. So we've got a lot of volunteers in the organisation and other similar organisations as well. We've done a lot of work recently with Bike for Good and Bike Station, so in Glasgow and Edinburgh, on sort of how we can collaborate, how we can work together and sort of push our message to kind of meet in the middle across kind of the areas that we serve. So over the last 12 months, kind of a few stats to go with that. We've had nearly 4,000 bikes donated over the last 12 months, sorry. So what I touched on before of saying it's a lot of bikes to deal with a sort of relatively small organisation. So that there's a lot of bikes coming through the doors. So relying on those partners and being able, and those volunteers especially, is absolutely vital for what we do. So over the last 12 months, 893 of those bikes have been fully refurbished. So we strip everything back to the frame, refurbish, new parts where required, and then sold back to the community through our shops. We did 2,539 repair or service jobs through our shops over the last 12 months, which is a huge amount for the relatively small team that we have. And then we reach approximately 1,500 people a year through kind of the outreach work that we do at the moment, and then an estimated 6,000 transactions through our stores on top. So that could be buying bikes, could be those servicing and repairs, could be sort of those second-hand products as well that we have. And last year we also gave away 231 fully refurbished referral bikes to those in need. So they were all free of charge, funded by the National Lottery. And then another 403 in the last 12 months went to our partner organisations that we were talking about before. So kind of looking ahead for us, our big opportunities, our kind of growth areas for the future is looking at how we expand our reach. We've got the chicken and egg scenario of if we had more people, we could reach further, but we can't reach further till we've got more people. So we're looking at kind of growing that team and being able to push that out, especially with our referral scheme. We're in talks with the National Lottery at the moment, pushing that out to extend the reach of where we can offer those bikes and how we distribute those bikes as well. We've got some co-delivery programs that we're really hoping to do. We've had a really successful collaboration with a partner locally called Kids Cabin. So all of our outreach in Biker, we go out into the streets twice a week in Biker and fix bikes for free. But we also get the kids to sort of watch what we're doing, learn, have a go at fixing the bikes themselves. So over the next couple of years across that strategy, we're looking to sort of collaborate and get more organisations like that where we can sort of put our respective fundings together to make more of an impact. We've been doing a lot more work with local councils recently and organisations that surround that to play our part in supporting active travel in the region. We've been lucky to be able to sort of help advise on a few projects, and be sort of invited to the table with some stuff which we're really trying to push, that the collaboration of local experts is the way forward with active travel, and making sure that even though we might not have all the answers, being so well connected in the active travel community, we'll probably know someone that does, and trying to get all of those people around the same table, so that rather than each individual organisation doing their own thing and not really talking, we pull everybody together and we try and pull in the same direction. And then continuing to provide consistency and affordable transport. We've got regular customers that without our offering potentially wouldn't be able to afford bikes. Without those bikes, we wouldn't be able to afford to get to work or things like that. So, despite sort of always thinking, oh, what's the next opportunity, or how do we expand, or how do we do more, we're really set on making sure we're consistently providing the things we're good at and the things we've been known for, year after year, and making sure that that level of service and level of availability doesn't waver. And then obviously expanding our training opportunities, increasing participation, and working how we reach those people where it might be a really big step to come to a training course. It might be that we offer more individualized courses and things like that, but really pushing that element of our charitable objectives to support self-sufficiency and try and keep as many bikes on the road as possible. So I haven't actually looked at my watch. I'm hoping, without being able to see anyone on the video raising their eyebrows at me, that I've kept kind of a rough time.
No, that's brilliant, Jack.
Good stuff. So kind of I'll put that slide on and I'll try and come back across to the video, but you can keep up with kind of everything we do across socials, the website. I've put my email address on there as well. If there's anything sort of outside of the session that people want to discuss, by all means reach out to me, and we can have a chat. But yeah, basically back to you guys, and I think there's
thanks. Jack, I've got a few questions here, so thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
And the first one was one I had as well, but I just wanted to clarify in terms of, you mentioned stores, in terms of locations, how many locations do you operate out of, and can you talk a bit about the sort of funding of those sites, because rents are sort of notoriously high, and how do you sort of fund your physical premises, and how many have you got?
Yeah, so we've got 2 physical sites at the moment. So we've got our bike sort of main office site, so that houses all the kind of office. So myself, our operations manager, our finance manager, all based at Biker, but we do have the retail store here as well. And then we've got a smaller site in Chesley Street, which is a lot smaller footprint, and it's more of just a retail store, but there's a lot of referral bikes go out from there, and outreach happens around Chesley Street in County Durham from that site. Obviously, rents are astronomical at the moment. We were very lucky for a long time. We were in the centre of Durham, where we were in a building from the council that was free of charge. And when they decided it was time for us to pay rent, we decided it wasn't possible. So we kind of used that as a bit of a leapfrog to move to Chesley Street, where we could be more in a place that needs us. So there's a few of those postcodes are in County Durham that are in that kind of most deprived postcodes in the UK. And for anybody that knows that, so moving out to Chesley Street was kind of a real bonus for us. The only downside is obviously it included having to pay quite a bit of rent. But generally, the retail shops tend to wash their own face. So the money that they make from sales, servicing, repairs, everything like that covers the cost of rent, utilities, all of those sort of things, and that is the goal, that we are self-sufficient in those sites. And then the kind of grant funding that we get tends to top up for those outreach projects, so external funding. But that is the goal of the shops, of basically keeping them alive through their own sales.
Jack, it might be worth you popping your slides down, because we're just getting a bit of breakup on your feed. So if you take the slides down, that might help with that. So yeah, that's really interesting. So yeah, the shops aim to sort of cover their own costs, and then you use grant funding for your projects. That's neat. A few questions. Some of them are sort of quite. I'll ask a couple of these together. Are your bikes all analog, or are you also fixing e-bikes? Do you get any bikes which the police have found / impounded, but which haven't been reclaimed? Let's go with those two for now.
Yeah, so on the analog question, a lot of our bikes are analog. We've probably got a small handful of e-bikes in the stores, and what we tend to do, we've got really good guidance from the Association of Cycle Traders with the e-bike positive campaign. So if anyone is kind of interested in sort of similar projects and how to do e-bikes that way, I would definitely recommend having a look at that. The basics of it is basically, for us, if we're going to work on a customer's bike that's electric, it'll be, is it road legal? Is it a recognised manufacturer? And is there any modifications to it that is visible? If any of those are no, then we just decline to work on it. That e-bike positive campaign has a really good sort of compliance certificate that you can produce to customers and say, this is where we stand with it. And that bottom line, I personally really don't think it's worth the risk of kind of doing anything where I always look upon the idea of, would I go and charge it in my own house? If the answer is no, then we probably shouldn't be working on it. It's a very difficult position with resale of e-bikes, with how we guarantee them, how we test them. It's a lot easier with recognized brands. So Bosch, for example, we can plug a Bosch bike in, we can see its history, we can have a look at how many charge cycles the batteries had. All of that's quite easy. With other bikes that maybe are unbranded or brands we don't recognize in the UK, we have no history, and if we sold that on, there's potential that could cause a problem. So we tend to err on the side of caution. The other question I've forgotten.
The other question was, do you get any bikes which the police have found / impounded, but which haven't been reclaimed? And Jack, we're still getting a bit of breakup on the video for you, so if that continues, I might suggest you just turn your video off and stay on. Yeah. So do you get any bikes the police have found?
Try it. I'll just try that without video for a little bit.
Yeah, great, thanks.
So yes, we do work with the police sometimes. It's a bit sporadic. It's a bit. Sometimes we'll get stuff, other times not. They tend to sort of ring us up and go, we've got a shipping container and you need to come and pick them up. And you're the 10th organisation we've contacted, so get down here quick. And sometimes sort of site teams will turn up with a van and go, we've got a few for you. So yeah, it is a bit all over the place. We do try and work with them where we can. But I think luckily they've got quite a few organisations in the region that they can access to sort of make sure those bikes don't end up in landfill or rotting in a container somewhere. So yeah.
Thanks. A bit more on the sort of finances. So there's a question here: how do you keep Recycle Your Bike financially sustainable? Is it by bike sales and service? I think you answered that question, as in yes, they cover their own costs. But you just talk a bit more about how the different parts kind of support the overall. Is it a charity or a?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a charity. The setup of it. So like I said, a lot of our income comes from those bike sales. They tend to cover most of the cost of having the sites, running the sites, keeping the lights on, keeping the doors open. The grant funding we do get tends to fund projects, so a lot of that is tied to um, sort of delivery time of it'll pay for staff to get out and deliver, it'll pay for parts, bikes, things like that. We have done a lot of hard work on making sure we cover an element of core costs where we can with those. So working out, especially for the office staff. So if myself, the operations manager, the finance manager are putting time into a project, sort of apportioning those overhead costs into that. So that's been a real help with making sure we get positive remuneration for those projects that we're actually doing, because it is very easy to sort of go, we really want this project to be a success, we know we can help all these people, and then undersell ourselves to say, oh, we just want to make sure this happens, so let's put a lower figure in.
Yeah.
So that's been really helpful. And then the other sort of element that tops up is donations for us. So both corporate donations and public donations. That tends to be the kind of the icing on the cake. We tend to use a lot of that for unrestricted funding. So things like energy bills going up, anything like that, we get those donations to support with unrestricted funding.
Yeah. And have you ever detected any sort of resentment from any local bike shops who might think, well, hang on a minute, you're getting a load of bikes for free and selling them for profit, albeit it's funding worthwhile community activities. Do you think Recyke takes trade away from local bike shops? Is one question you've been asked. Are you still there, Jack? I feel like we've been hanging on to Jack's Wi-Fi for a few minutes and might have finally given up the ghost.
Sorry,
Jack,
I can
yeah.
hear you again now. I missed that last bit.
The question is, how do you think Recycle takes trade away from local bike shops? And have you detected any sort of because I guess on the basics of it, you're sort of taking bikes for free and reselling them. Um, so yeah, what do you feel about the other local shops? How do they feel about you?
Yeah, so it's quite difficult because we we've been around for 20 years this year in the region. So we've got quite a good long-standing relationship with a lot of bike shops. And I think what's good, sort of, I know a lot of the people in quite a lot of the local bike shops, and I think we've got kind of quite a positive space of, we're in different areas of the market. We work quite well together. I know there's a couple of local shops here in Byker that we work quite well with, that we know sometimes we might have a customer in that what they're looking for, they're going to be better suited in one of those shops. And the guys sort of in the other shops know that they might have customers that come in that are going to be better off with us for various different reasons. And we tend to work quite well with that. I think that the harder thing is potentially other similar organizations. So just last year, we actually lost one of the other. It was a CIC, but it was a very similar organization, probably a couple of miles away from where we are here. and it's very difficult to try and pull together and collaborate on stuff when you've got such similar goals. And that's probably been our hardest connection. Is there's probably another 3 or 4 organisations trying to do similar things around Newcastle, and just kind of how we pull together and sort of try and achieve our goals together, whilst also not letting that sort of competitive nature of business get in the way is probably the more difficult relationship to manage.
Right. And Matthew Snedker from Darlington has said that he volunteered at a recycling scheme for several years and that they always had more bikes than they could refurbish, stroke, resell, or give away. You said you pass on bikes to other organisations. Do you think there is enough capacity for all the second-hand bikes that are gathering dust in sheds?
Yeah, I think so. I think sort of collaboratively, we definitely see that sort of there's a need through those other projects for bikes. We always say in the summer, if we could build those 4,000 bikes we get donated and put them all out in the summer, we would sell them all, because we're
Right.
always in a position where people come in and we just can't build the bikes fast enough. I'm sure if it was the other way around and we were building 4,000 bikes a year, there'd become a point where we didn't sell as many. But I think in the situation, probably the last 3 summers I've worked here, definitely throughout the summer, we've been at panic stations trying to build more bikes all the time, because we just sell them faster than we can build them. So I think there is definitely a good amount of bikes out there, and it's good. We always view it as it's good that they end up with us rather than in landfill rotting in a shed somewhere.
Mm.
There's always going to be something we can do with them, whether that's using parts off bikes, passing them on to those partner organisations that might, for example, some of the training organisations, they might need sort of sacrificial frames and things like that to demonstrate bottom bracket facing or tapping or headset facing, something like that, that they've then got a finite lifetime and they're going to need a good supply of them. So things like that are sort of overall benefiting the charitable objectives, they're always going to be a need. So I definitely think there is kind of a use for all of them somewhere.
Yeah, brilliant. And there's a question about the National Lottery funding and how vital it is to your existence. And I just wanted to check my understanding is correct, that essentially the National Lottery funding, you get bikes donated for free, you recycle them, and then when you donate them to sort of worthy causes, the National Lottery pays you for those. Is that correct?
Sort of, yeah. So how we worked with the National Lottery on the referral scheme last time, was we kind of worked out an average cost of refurbishing those bikes. So it might be sort of a lot of the bikes get refurbished by volunteers initially. They obviously get some new parts, some reused parts where we can, and then sort of double checked by a paid member of staff that's qualified. And then they obviously get shipped out across the region. Some of them, so kind of working out an average cost for those bikes and saying to the National Lottery, this is the average cost for an adult bike, this would be the average cost for a child's bike. And then what they do is they give us a pot that basically says we'll fund, it was just over sort of 200 last year, so we'll fund those 200 and something bikes. Here's the money, and as you distribute them, we would kind of claim that money back from them.
Thank you. And a couple more, and then I think we're getting near the end of people's questions. But on the I like Tim's question, which is, do you get mail order bikes that were rejected by the new owner and returned, a bit like sofas that were too big to get into the home?
I missed the first bit. I just heard about sofas. Sorry.
Well, I'll broaden it. Yeah, what are the kind of reasons you get given a bike? Tim's question is, do you basically get given bikes that people buy online and then they're not appropriate, so they just donate them to you? What are the reasons you get bikes?
Yeah, so there's all sorts of reasons. We get stuff like that where people um, have bought bikes in the wrong size, return them. We get a lot of sort of almost legacy stuff, and houses, sort of say kids and stuff are clearing out houses and going. There's loads of bikes there. A lot of our kids' bikes, we tend to get a lot of repeat custom. So they come in, they bring the last size bike, they buy the next size up, they donate that back to us at the end of it. A lot of the time is people have bought a bike in good faith, going, I'm going to ride to work every day. I'm going to get out. And cycling is going to be my new passion. And then it sits in the shed for 5 years, and they clear the shed out and go, I'm going to turn the shed into a bar or a garden room, and we need rid of these bikes because we never use them. So they tend to be the kind of regular ones. We get quite a lot. We try and encourage a bit of a circular economy with the students as well. So we've got two main universities in Newcastle. Getting a lot of students coming back in. We do very well kind of at the end of term with encouraging students to bring bikes in, bring bikes back. So when they leave the city, they're not just kind of left in gardens and things like that. So we get quite a lot from there as well. And
Yeah.
we've got other organisations as well that will, like Green Spaces, the metro system in Newcastle. Any bikes that sort of get left or abandoned with them, they tend to bring to us as well. So various different routes where they all end up with us.
Interesting. Robin, do come in and ask your question.
Yeah, thanks. It's not as much a question really as I went to visit Recyke as with Cycling UK's trustees last autumn, and one thing I just wanted to get across was you don't really get from presentation, you have to go there, is just the size and the scale of the operation and the professionalism. It's this vast warehouse of bike pieces and bikes, and there are racks of bikes and rows of forks and boxes of bearings and big boxes of pedals, and it's all so well organized. There are shelves and shelves of every kind of bike bit you can imagine, all sorted into their different types. It's just a fantastic experience to see this huge sports hall type warehouse right from the front, where they've got the bikes fully made up, to the back where they're breaking down the bits that are completely useless into the different types of metal for metal recycling. Just such a fantastic operation to see, and we were the trustees of Cycling UK were all completely smitten with amazement and wanted to replicate that in the cities in which we lived. It was just wonderful to see. So yeah, just wanted to repeat what I think we said on the day.
Yeah, no, thank you, Robin. It was great to have you guys up and see it. And I think it's one thing we have a lot with funders, where myself and Fran, the operations manager, just say, just come down and have a look at what we do. And a lot of the time people go, oh my word, I had no idea it was on this scale, or just the amount you get through. And obviously you can sort of tell people the numbers and they go, wow, that's a lot of bikes in one place. And when you see them all here, it is really, really good. So yeah.
And on that note, Jack, I wanted to know sort of how this all started. Like, did you sort of just start trying to recycle bikes and sort of stumble into a kind of business model, or did you sit down and go to business school and figured out that this would work? How did you Because there's obviously, as you say, Robin, quite a big operation now. What was the genesis for arriving at this?
Yeah, so Recyke Your Bike was going a long time before I was involved. And how it started was, so our founder Dorothy was working a lot with refugees and asylum seekers in Newcastle. Was a big cyclist. Her husband and sons were big cyclists around Newcastle, and just on an off chance having a conversation with one of the local tips of sort of saying, I've got a load of refugees here that feel really isolated and really struggle to get around the city, and you've got a big pile of bikes over there that you're not doing anything with. Sort of, is there something that could work here? And that was 20 years ago. So it started with Dorothy just kind of getting a few bikes and going, let's make them work. Let's get refugees on these bikes, and let's try and make them feel included by letting them get around the city and helping them on that way. And then obviously Dorothy saw something in it and stayed involved for quite a long time, scaled it up, and then kind of, I would say, probably the started to kind of take the idea of one person taking this is kind of scalable. And like I said, around the idea of selling bikes through the summer, the referral schemes are exactly the same. We've never been undersubscribed for referral bikes. So there's a definite need across the region for affordable bikes, free bikes, and kind of the work that we do. So that's kind of how we, very short history of how we got to where we are.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah. Right, I've got two questions left, and you are still dropping in and out in terms of the Wi-Fi. So I think we'll just ask these two questions, and hopefully the Wi-Fi will last long enough for us to get through those. Question from Marcus in Hove: is there anything being done to encourage more people to bring their bikes to your workshop and fix them themselves at no cost?
Yeah, so it is something we looked at. So I went up on a visit to Scotland to Bike for Good and the bike station, and one thing they were both doing was they've got a specific workshop for people to kind of get in and fix their own bikes. And I really love that idea of being able to sort of, they had volunteers supporting that. And that way they had volunteers. So obviously the setup cost is obviously a little bit to have those work stands and tools available and keep on top of them. But the ongoing cost of putting a volunteer in there to support people and giving people that access is really positive. It's something we want to do. I'm sure Robin would tell you that although we've got a huge warehouse of space, every corner of it currently is rammed full with stuff. So it's something longer term we're looking at of how we keep the layout of the building efficient with what we're trying to do, and not spreading ourselves too thin as well. Of going, what we don't want to do, I touched on this before, but what we don't want to do is think we can solve the whole region's cycling problems all at once, spread ourselves too thin and end up doing an average job at everything when we could do a really good job at some really specific things. So at the moment we're focusing on kind of what we've got on the go now project wise, but it is a goal to be able to kind of open that up. And we've talked about updating or upgrading our training room, so where we deliver training courses from. And there's a bit sort of in the back of my mind trying to work of, could that room double up as a space to come and fix your own bike. We do have a stand at the front with kind of a selection of tools and a pump and stuff like that, that's just in the entrance hall as you come in. But obviously with it just being one there tends to normally be somebody in it. We might need to double those up, but yeah, that's where we're at with that.
Yeah, and then last two questions. You mentioned volunteers there. How vital are volunteers to the success of Recyke? And is it easy enough to get them? And that's from Clive, and also one from H, which is, are you working with young offenders to offer cycle repair training?
Yeah, so volunteers wise, we would not exist without volunteers. They are the backbone of what we do. All our van drivers are volunteers. Most of our bike production happens through volunteers. So I've got one paid member of staff at each site that manages bike production, and every other bike that's built will go through the hands of at least one volunteer for refurbishment. So without them, we would not be able to cope without them. So they're absolutely vital to everything that we do. We're also blessed with other volunteers trying to help and support us with things like administration. Obviously, all our trustees are volunteers as well. And various little bits like social media. I mentioned the van driving before, and even sort of development of staff as well. We've got sort of retired professionals that have run training courses for staff around things like sort of first aid at work, health and safety, even sort of financial and accounting skills. So yeah, the absolute backbone of what we do. And then moving on to the young offenders thing, we've worked with sort of quite a few organisations. So we've worked with a couple of young offending teams in local councils. So we've put them through Velotech training. So they're kind of the workers that are supporting those young offenders have got those qualifications mechanically out of it. And we've also worked with a couple of organisations, obviously getting the bikes out to them so they can run these sessions. We've had some chats about, we've had serving prisoners in doing the Velotech course. So we've worked with prisons on that. And I think it's somewhere now we've started to get a bit of traction with supporting those sort of our main prison that we were supporting closed down their bike workshop, which obviously is a blow for the prisoners there because they were going to lose out on that just due to staff retiring. But it's definitely something that we're trying to grow. Obviously, young people are a big kind of benefit, and all those young offenders organisations. I'm sure that soon we'll be sort of in a position to get those young offenders trained and certificated as well, and giving them sort of another opportunity.
Well, thank you, Jack. I don't know if it's worth just turning your camera on. We've covered a lot of ground there. Try put your camera on for the farewell. Really interesting, and 4,000 bikes donated in the last 12 months, and all found new homes, and that's more people cycling and more people who couldn't afford them in the first place in many cases. So thank you very much for inspiring us with that story, and thank you everyone for joining Active Travel Cafe this week. We are back next week as usual, and next week we're hearing from Kate Ball, who is the campaign lead for Wheels for Wellbeing, who will be joining us next week, and we'll send out our usual weekly update on email that will fill you in on that. So if you're not on our mailing list, then do join it. It's at activetravelcafe.org on our website. Thank you, Jack, and thanks everyone for this week.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.